Detroit. And right now we are in the gallery at CreativeMornings space. And since last month, you probably noticed the art has changed a little bit in here. So we have 4 featured artists in here. Celeste is in the house. Where's Celeste at? I just made eye contact. Where's Celeste go? We're here. Celeste is one of the artists. Do you want to say anything about your work? I put you on the spot. Enjoy, great. And there's other artists in here too that I was going to give a spiel, but I'm kind of forgetting at this early hour in the morning of what they are.
Jack or Alex or...
I don't know. Oh, Alex is here. Do you want to say something about your work? Okay, great. Alex, where's her work? Where'd it go?
There's one there, there's one here behind that socket.
Oh, yeah. Amazing. Well, cool. We'll just wanted to highlight that. These pieces in the back are especially cool. This is by Scott Skeeble. This is called a project called Faces of Detroit, and these are actually people that are experiencing homelessness. And the work that he does with these people, when the art is sold, the funds actually go directly to that person. And so it's a really, I think I was looking more into it, part of a larger national project, nonprofit he's a part of, but it's just really cool. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these pieces, they're there for you. Amazing. Well, we have an amazing speaker here with us, Adria Moses in the house. If you know her, she's wonderful. I have admired her before I've even gotten to know her, but I've had the chance to get to know her over the past few years, and you are just bound to be in your heart and be inspired by what she's going to share with us today. So without further ado, I'll introduce Adria. Thank you. Give her a round of applause.
Hello, good morning. Thank y'all. Thank you, one, for letting me be here. Eric, Taylor, Creative Mornings, I really appreciate it. And thank you for spending your Friday morning with me. For those of you who do not know, my name is Adria Moses. I am the founder of the School of Radical Healing. The School of Radical Healing is a trauma-informed, BIPOC-centered organization that teaches self-regulation and promotes trauma recovery through somatics, love, and language. I am in my 4th year of business in scaling, climbing, so yes, exactly. If you're an entrepreneur, you know how it goes. When you visit my website later, which I hope you do, I want you to keep in mind that 90% of what you're experiencing on my website, I created. From the design to the back-end SEO, yes, I've taught myself how to do that, to the facilitation, the offerings, everything there is me, with a little bit of help from a couple of my friends. I'm going to take a non-traditional approach to today. I don't have slides. I made 3 slides. We were laughing about this earlier. But I don't really need them because trust is really intangible. As I was writing and thinking about what I wanted to say today, I was just thinking there's no step-by-step to trust, okay? So this will be a little informal, much like my journey, okay? So I will say that I believe my work, my life speaks to the essence of trust, especially what it means to lean into self-trust in order to succeed. I believe that success comes from trust being power behind that. Okay, I say that it's the invisible force behind success. So let's get into my origin a little bit, shall we? And because I don't have slides, I have just a couple prompts for me to stay on track here. So I want to share a little bit about where I come from. I think that's an important, essential part of my story. I am the youngest of 4 babies from Inkster, Michigan. Growing up, I had a front row seat to domestic violence, and at the age of 11, my mom escaped our living conditions, and not long after that, I began to develop symptoms of Crohn's disease. At the tender age of 12, I was diagnosed with this chronic autoimmune illness. For those of you who don't know what Crohn's is, it is a digestive disease that is inflammatory. Symptoms are severe pain, severe fatigue, and the worst for me, malnutrition. And so very early on in my life, my focus became my body. My goals became surviving a very insidious illness. So I always say it was kind of written in the cards for me to be where I am today. So let me be honest about something. As I got older, I did terribly in high school. I was not a good student. Of course, being in chronic pain doesn't make it easy to study, to be present, to be aware. At 16, I was in the thick of finals my junior year, and I developed shingles. If you're not familiar with what that is, that's something that most people get later on in life. And so I performed very poorly in high school, and it was very difficult for me as I navigated that. But as I remember that as well, I also remember the things that enabled me to move forward. And this is where I'm kind of speaking to trust here, okay? In the thick of my junior year, when everyone's planning to go to college, all those things, I was desperate to keep up with my peers. Like, I wanted to go to college just like them. I wanted to make something of my life. And so I applied to colleges I knew I wasn't going to get into. They were not going to accept these grades, U of M, Ohio State. I was just going crazy. I applied anywhere and everywhere. And I wrote an essay. And that essay was the first time I shared my story. And it was the first time doors started to open because I shared that story. Because it wasn't that I wasn't good enough for college, right? It was that the cards I was dealt made things more difficult for me than they needed to be. And so I wrote an essay, and I got one call back, y'all, one call. It was from Oakland University. Head of admissions wanted to meet with me. I was like, okay, here I go, I'm going to university. And I met with this woman, and she admitted me on the spot. Her sister just so happened to have Crohn's disease, and it was my first time hearing of another woman having Crohn's disease, another black woman having Crohn's disease. It opened my world, and that was the first time I really benefited from sharing my story. But what came after that was daunting, okay? At the age of 19, I endured an emergency surgery, a bowel resection that left me on life support, left me with a stint in the ICU. I was hospitalized for 2 months, and I went home with an IV pole. I had to learn how to administer my own medicine. I went home with an open wound because there were too many complications to close me. So my mother packed that wound day and night until I had the courage to do it on my own. Now, I would say that that was the hardest part, but it wasn't. What followed after that almost broke me, got me pretty close. I had to file for disability. My car got repossessed. I attempted to take my own life, and I had to file bankruptcy, all before the age of 22. So if you can imagine, at this point in my life, all I have is trust, okay? I'm trusting something that I cannot see. I don't know where this is going, but there's gotta be a purpose. That's what I held on to. I'm like, there's gotta be a reason that all of this is happening. And see, some failures in life, some things that happen in life, they're self-inflicted things. Other times, they're thrust upon us, and we don't actually have a choice. So this was the first time that I really was like, I'm gonna trust something I cannot see. And so I wanted to find trust, so that I love definitions, I love language, I love words. If you find me on social media, you're gonna be like, this girl talks a lot, and she has lots of quotes. It's kind of my thing. Trust is defined as the firm belief in the reliability, the strength, the ability, the truth of someone or something. And so I was like, okay, this is both for me, right? Really trusting in myself and in this walk. Now, one thing that has always stuck with me, because we are here, and I know someone mentioned we're all here from like different modalities and, you know, different creative backgrounds and all those things. One thing that really stuck with me growing up, to bounce back a little bit, when I was 16, I had a job at Kroger, and I'd have to call off a lot because I was sick. And, you know, they thought I was lying, and necessarily so. I was a 16-year-old girl, and maybe I wanted to go hang out with my friends. But my mom, she sat me down one day, and she was like, my family calls me AG. She was like, you're gonna have to find out, you know, because there's no cure for Crohn's, by the way. She's like, you're gonna have to figure out how to be your own boss. You are gonna have to figure out how to create your own schedule, because there is not a 9 to 5 in the world that's gonna give you the sick days that you need. And I took that to heart. I took that to heart very deeply through all of the roles I've held. I have a very entrepreneurial spirit. I remember creating a profile on care.com. I'll come clean your house. I'll be your nanny. I did in-home care, executive assistant, anything and everything to make my funds and respectfully, y'all, keep my little disability check at that time, okay? But there was a moment that I trusted more than any, and that I have built off of. And that was the first time I stepped into the yoga room post-surgery. Now, I share this story a lot, so if you've listened to a podcast of mine or you've heard me speak, it's kind of my favorite story to share because I want you to keep in mind I had an open wound. So by the time I got into a yoga room, that wound was healing into a scar. So a lot of people know me for my scar. You might see me walking around with it out. I have no shame. My wound was just turning into a scar. And everyone's like, you know, I was dealing with anxiety, depression. Everyone's like, you gotta do something to help you cope. And everyone kept bringing up yoga. And I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go, you know, try this yoga thing. Now, the choice of yoga, I thought there was only one yoga, y'all. I'm from Inkster. We didn't grow up talking about yoga, okay? So I thought there was one thing. So I Googled closest yoga studio near me. Okay, I went there. Tell me why the room was 105 degrees. 105 degrees. They said 26 postures done twice, 90 minutes. Okay, and if you know anything about Bikram yoga, because that's the yoga I'm describing, yes, there's mirrors all around the room. Now here's the thing, I made it through like 87 minutes of that class, okay? And I remember the body. Here's the thing, I thought I had lost something. Because when you go through that intense of a surgery, especially when you're not prepared, that's the biggest thing. I wasn't prepared. I woke up one day and I started to decline. I thought I had lost, you know, that vitality. I thought I had lost the connection to my body and that I was going to have to live with dissociation. And some of us know what that is. Some of us know what it feels like to not be in your body. So I thought, okay, I'm just going to find a way to live like this. But that class, I mean, I'm not a big advocate for Bikram yoga anymore, but that class showed me something about myself, and those mirrors showed me strength in a body that had been broken down and severed and gone through so much. And so that time spent in the yoga room really allowed me to start reimagining myself. And I saw myself teaching yoga. I honestly had I'm not gonna say given up, but it was very hard to see a future post-surgery. It was hard for me to figure out how am I gonna rebuild. I lost everything. But I started seeing myself as a yoga teacher, and I started considering giving this gift, because that's what it was to me, to others along the way. And some of you can relate to this. You know when you've tried something for the first time, or you've done something that you think you couldn't do, and you feel really connected to it. It's like you know that there's something about it. Like, I might be kind of good at this. I had that feeling, and it's a sacred, silent feeling. And I want you to know that that is trust. That feeling is trust itself. I didn't know how I was going to become a yoga teacher. I didn't know what was going to come of it, but I saw myself there. Now, the reason that I believe we ignore that silent, sacred feeling, and there's many reasons, but two came up for me. One, we live under capitalism. One thing about me, I'm gonna acknowledge the isms everywhere I go. Everywhere I go. We live under capitalism, so is it gonna turn me a profit? Can I really make a career out of being a yoga teacher? And okay, I've been teaching yoga for 8.5 years. At that time, definitely didn't see that for myself. And then the second reason to me is what society tells us we should be. I wanted to go to college really bad. I wanted that degree really bad, but that institution didn't work for me, right? The 9-to-5 didn't work for me. I want to say this real quick, disclaimer. Entrepreneurship is not an alternative. It's very stressful and crazy, but it's my preferred stress, okay? I want to be able to lay down, okay, when I'm going through it, okay? So those two reasons, right? What does society say that I should be? And I had to really let go of these ideals, because essentially what I was working with, again, it was informal, non-traditional. And so, again, we don't talk about yoga there, so the story continues that I became a yoga teacher, obviously, in 2016. So I pursued my certification, and this was really just the beginning. So I was like, okay, I'm gonna turn my storytelling up a notch, okay? And a part of accepting and trusting this journey was laying it all out there. And so, as Taylor said, a lot of people know me from my social media. I know people be hating on social media. If you need something good on your timeline, follow me, okay? I'm trying to be as authentic and real. Social media has been such it's like my journal, it's like my diary. It's a place where I really am honest. In the times where I was bedridden and couldn't be with my friends, social media was a tool that I used to stay connected with people. So I want you to keep in mind that sometimes folks with disabilities, social media is really an amazing tool. So I started sharing my scar and everything that came with it, okay? Very publicly, and all of the things. I really trusted that this was right. I trusted that this was the point of it all, okay? In 2018, I was asked to create a yoga program at Downtown Boxing Gym. So this was a really pivotal point in my career, and Downtown Boxing Gym, for those of you who don't know, is a nonprofit on the east side. They serve about 120 youth, and they provide STEM, literary services. They feed the babies. It's boxing. It's called Books Before Boxing, so they're getting their homework done and everything, and then they get to go box, and they were missing a wellness component. So they asked me to come in and create a yoga program. I said, okay. They said, the one requirement though, Adria, before you come in here, is that you become trauma informed. And I said, okay. I didn't know what that meant, but I went and got the education. And y'all, I learned what yoga had been doing for me, a traumatized individual, that whole time. It was helping me regulate my nervous system. It was helping me tap into parasympathetic so that I could rest, digest, ease. It was helping me to tune into my breathing. It was doing something for me that I just didn't have the language for. And what becoming trauma informed did for me was provide me with that language. At this time, when I'm creating these programs, I'm also doing events throughout the city. My thing, I teach at a studio now, but I never taught at a studio. I would just pop up at a random retail shop, like Detroit's the New Black. If you're familiar with that, we clear the space out, put some mats down, and we do like art and yoga. That was my thing. It was like wherever we could do it and however we could do it, accessibility is key. So that's kind of where I started. And at that time, I was working a job, y'all, because bills. But that job was very taxing. It was more than 9 to 5. Some of y'all, kudos to you, because y'all be working 60 hours a week, and I just feel so deeply for you. But in 2019, I quit that job, and I'm gonna be honest with y'all, I had no plan. Trust, right? That's the theme of today, trust. I had no plan, I don't recommend it, but at the same time, I needed to. It was my health, remember? I had to be my own boss. That was just the truth, and that truth never wavered for me. So I quit that job with no plan. I went home, opened my journal, and I wrote, I'm gonna work with the Pistons, the Detroit Pistons. I didn't, delusional idea. I didn't know how. I was just like, okay. And I could not make this up, y'all. Literally a week and a half later, the assistant coach of the Detroit Pistons reached out to me. He was looking for a mindfulness facilitator for his nonprofit, and he hired me. I was like, okay, I'm doing this. Okay, then what happened in 2020, y'all? The world shuts down. Whew, another test, right, of trusting myself emerges, but this time, it's about betting on me all the way. And that is the process. That's the thing about it, is like trust is a constant. One of the slides I had up here, or what's gonna have up here, is about trust being something that consistency can power, right? That being consistent, not being obedient, not necessarily even being disciplined, right? Because what if you're sick? What if you're not well? What if you got kids? What if you gotta move? Life is always happening. It's about consistency. Right? I say never letting up. So I also have the thought of, I've already seen rock bottom. So, it can only be up from here in my world. That's how I think of it. And, the theme is trust today. And as I was writing and coming in today, I was like, I could have talked about trusting others. I could have absolutely taken that route. But I think it's really essential when you're recovering. And you don't have to be recovering from a surgery or a super traumatic event. You could be a recovering people pleaser. You could be someone who, lacks boundaries a little bit, right? Trusting yourself is what enables you to trust others. So it's a good starting place. It makes it easier to trust others, okay? So at the end of 2020, and also I want you to think about 2020 as well, not just as COVID, but it's called the School of Radical Healing for a reason, okay? Because there was a demand at that time in my eyes to really approach our healing. It was the first time I was even seeing the word trauma as frequently as I was seeing it. And so at the end of 2020, by the request of my community, everyone was like, how do we become trauma informed? I was like, okay, maybe I need to create something. And so I created the School of Radical Healing and decided to teach what I know, okay? And at the end of 2020, I led my first trauma-informed program, teaching principles and practices around getting back into your body, most importantly, creating safe space for others to do the same. And 4 years later, y'all, okay, and I mean this, people from all over, and when I say all over, I mean all over the world, from Finland to England, from Qatar to Cuba, to Montreal, to LA, Chicago, Detroit, from all over have joined the School of Radical Healing to learn these principles. And it's virtual. I've delivered keynotes at LinkedIn. I have delivered workshops out to organizations in the UK, worked with the Criminal Justice Association. I've sat on panels with NBA players like Derrick Rose. Trusting yourself and what comes to you is what builds, empowers success. And whatever success means to you, I know I'm using that word, but success to me is like getting back up and doing what I said I was going to do. Doesn't mean I'm rich and I have everything in the world, but I'm here. And what I always say is, even if we fail, even when we do fail, we begin again. Even if we succeed, we begin again, right? It's this internal occurrence that you lean on. It's the ideas that come to you. I always say there's no idea just coming to you for no reason. It's dropping in you because it's literally being generated by you. You might not be able to get to all of your ideas at once, but don't sleep on you, right? Trust is a sacred knowing. It is a sacred knowing. And as I close here, I want to remind you again that trust is the invisible force behind success, and trust lives here. Thank y'all.
Who has questions for Adria? We have some more time. Anything and everything.
It's a lot to process. Take a deep breath. You should take a deep breath. Let's take a deep breath, y'all. If you want, you can ground both feet, but let's take a deep breath in through our nose. Out through our mouth. Deep breath in. Release. One more deep breath in. And let it go. Thank you for letting me share my story and for holding space for that. I really appreciate that.
Yeah, perfect. Here we go. Here, the first
Good morning. Thank you for sharing your story. It was great to hear it. My question is, what does since your lifestyle departs from the social norm or society advocates for, what does your average day look like?
Ooh, that's a great question. Every day does not look the same because I do not wake up feeling the same every day. Also, I'm fostering a kitten right now, which he has taken over my days. But I typically, I teach Pilates at Hot Bones, but I typically teach a class a day, and then I will spend about 4 hours working on my business. The other time spent might be resting, being with my friends, maybe working a little bit more, but really rest has been very prominent for me. Other days are going to get an infusion, going to doctor's appointments, things of that nature. So no day actually looks the same. I try to get my work done though, because that's another thing as entrepreneurs. If you don't sit down and do your work, okay, you won't have no business, okay? So that's a big thing for me. I have to block out time and really focus in. So thank you for that. That's a good question. I know you have a question back here. Oh, in here. We can don't forget your question.
Okay, I'll ask first. Yeah, thank you for sharing. Super interesting. I resonate with a lot of your story. Curious about the School of Radical Healing. So, do you have, if you were to break it down, what does it look like when someone goes through that? Do you have certain modules? And yeah, could you explain?
Yeah, so when an individual goes through the School of Radical Healing, it is a live program. It's 12 weeks long. Right now we're getting geared up for the fall cohort. We meet once a week and we kind of go through this brain, body, spirit kind of thing. So it's not learning on your own, because one of the essential parts of healing is community and learning from others. So we take a non-dominant approach. I facilitate the space, but I don't know everything. And thankfully, people are coming from all over, so we're getting to learn from different experiences. but we go through the science, some neuroscience, polyvagal theory, and then we move into somatics, how the body stores trauma, how the body can release trauma, and then we move into love and language. So love, for those of you who are familiar with bell hooks, the love portion is informed by bell hooks, and then we talk about language, how we can actually speak to each other's nervous systems. If I was yelling at y'all up here, you'd be like, oh, this girl is intense, right? It would make you feel different, right? So actually using our language, our communication to influence each other, to create safer space, that's kind of like the flow of it. It used to be a weekend, and I was like, this has been very trauma-informed of me. Okay, I had to kind of check myself. And now it's 12 weeks, and it's been a really beautiful experience. And then once you graduate, there's a certificate, and we do alumni meetups where we're talking about like, okay, what more do we need? How are we doing, of course, and all of that. So that's one part of the School for Advocate Healing. That's the main part. Yeah, thank you for that. This man the mic.
Hi, thank you so much for your talk today. It was wonderful. You kind of just addressed a little bit of my question, but as somebody who's been in this work both before the pandemic happened and now currently doing it, and the concept of trust, I don't know about everybody else, but I have this sort of vague sense of lack of trust, just like communally or societally, and I'm wondering what it looks like for trauma-informed practices to work in building trust, not just in one's own body and one's own self, but also in one's larger community and with each other.
Absolutely, thank you for that. I will say, and my friends know, I don't have any trust in like the systems or anything like that. I feel like at the end of the day, all we're gonna have and all we have is community. We need to be able to knock on our neighbor's door, things of that nature. But one thing that came up for me, I just graduated from a restorative justice program. And if you know anything about restorative justice, it's about repair, seeing the humanity, even in the harm doer. And so trust and community looks like upholding each other's humanity, making room for mistakes, making room not necessarily for forgiveness, but for repair, asking for what we need. One thing about trauma-informed practices that we learn is that when we're born into this world, we cry out for help. We don't like get up and like go help ourselves. We cry out for help, and then as we get older, and especially if we live in America where rugged individualism exists, we stop doing that. So building trust also looks like asking for help and receiving it. You'd be surprised. You ask for help, 5 people come out the woodwork wanting to help you, right? And then sometimes they can't, and you're like, you see their capacity, you see what they can and cannot do. So that's what comes up for me when you ask that question, and it's a big practice that we really need to lean into, so that, you know, as, can I cuss here? As shit hits the fan, okay, I can call Rachel, I can call Naila, I can call Brandon, and, you know, I have people that know me and I can lean into. So that's what there's that.
That was beautiful. Any other questions coming up? If not, I kind of just had an insight of a little, maybe we have 5 minutes left, a little activity based on what you just said. How does that feel? Can we do that? So I love that idea of like just saying what we need and what we want. And this is a community, right? And so many of us are continually showing up on a consistent basis. So this group of people can be some of your actual people. So, you know, close your eyes for a second, just if you can. And I want you to think of something in either your life or someone that you love in their life that you want or that you need. What are you working toward right now? Maybe it's in business and you're like, God, I need a new client. Maybe it's personally, it's like, I need a new car. Or I really want to paint my house. I have no idea. From as big or small, vulnerable or vain, it doesn't matter. Open your eyes. And I want us to take the remainder of the time to turn around to the people around you and talk about what came up. What are your wants and your needs right now, and what can you ask for from this community? Not promising that that's going to happen, but who knows? Because maybe someone overhears you talking to someone and they say, I know the exact person to connect you with to be able to help you do that. Can we do that? Let's give it a try. This could go really poorly, or I have a feeling it'll be pretty awesome. So, round of applause for Adria one more time. Okay, you ready? Bingo.